Plant a seed and watch it grow. $1 is all it takes to make a difference. Visit www.worshipcenterradio.net and click the banner on the right-hand side and sow a seed to Worship Center Radio, the platform of champions.
From Detroit to the nations, you are listening to the world's #1 Christian station, Worship Center Radio, the platform of champions.
God bless you. You've logged onto the Preached Word broadcast. Our program format consists of sound biblical teaching, the unadulterated Word of God, teaching series, invited guests, and interviews. I'm Pastor Constance Harvey, your program host. Now let's go into today's program.
How's everybody doing out there today? My name is George Blackmore. I'm sitting in for Reverend Harvey today. She asked me to come in and kind of be a special guest while she's bettering herself down at a conference in Tennessee. So she asked me to come in and talk about various things in the legal system that people encounter on a daily basis, and us as good Christians, people tend to seek help, and we want to make sure that people are getting the right information. Again, my name is George Blackmore. You might remember me. I was on a couple weeks ago. I'm a local lawyer here in Metro Detroit, Michigan, and it's great to be here. So I want to talk about some things that, in my experience as an attorney and just as a normal person, that people encounter on a, not so often basis, but it does happen, whether it's getting pulled over, for speeding, or, a noise complaint by a neighbor, or you have a complaint to make. There's been a lot in the news lately about police encounters, and unfortunately, most of that has been very negative news with how certain tragedies have happened. I would like to talk about things that the average individual can do to keep themselves out of trouble, essentially. Many people in their encounters with law enforcement have very negative opinions about it, and hopefully what we talk about here tonight can kind of give you some guidance on how to navigate that stressful time. I want to tell a story about the time I recently got pulled over for speeding. I was speeding. Absolutely no doubt about it. I saw the police officer. I slowed down. I pulled over, got my license and registration out, and the police stop went, how you would expect. The police officer said, "Do you know why I pulled you over?" And me being a lawyer, I said, I'm not sure. And he said, you were speeding. And I say, okay, I must not have recognized that, because I was really keeping up with the flow of traffic, which is everybody's argument. Everybody else was speeding, so why should I get in trouble? And I was polite to the officer. I answered his questions yes or no. And he came back, he gave me a ticket, I paid it because I was wrong. Now, most people have that type of experience. They know what they did was wrong, and they accept responsibility because that's what we're taught to do. Now, if you watch the news or you follow social media or anything going on today, you see a lot of things about body cams and police brutality, and whether it's racially motivated or not, that's not really a topic that I want to talk about tonight, but I want to talk about why those things are happening and why it's important for every citizen to know what exactly their rights are. Now, I'm not going to give you a in-depth lecture about, the Fourth Amendment and the Fifth Amendment and all the various things that I spent a lot of time and money on in my life to sit in a classroom from people very intelligent to explain to me. And to be honest, a lot of people, still don't have a firm grasp because, let's face it, the law changes all the time. In America, we have 50 different states that make 50 different laws. So one state to another could be different. For example, you might notice if you're a Michigan resident that we don't have DUI checkpoints, and other states do. It's not because Michigan doesn't care about drunk drivers, it's because the Supreme Court in Michigan has ruled that DUI checkpoints are unconstitutional and illegal search. The United States Supreme Court has said, we think DUI checkpoints are okay. So it could be hard when you're talking to a friend or a family member about what you should do in a situation. Oh, that's illegal, that, they violated your rights, things like that. It can lead to a lot of confusion. It can lead to really bad situations where, you get to court and things just don't go your way because you think you know what you're talking about and the judge tells you you're wrong. It's a very difficult time when people encounter these situations that ultimately leave them feeling like they're being accused of something and they're getting the book thrown at them and nobody cares about the fact that they have a job, and if they go to jail, they'll lose their job, and all of these different things. So my job as a lawyer is to obviously listen to every client that comes in and needs help. And it's shocking if you talk to a lot of lawyers, or even if you just watch the show Cops or anything like that, how the average person ends up hurting themselves because they think they're just trying to help and be honest and be cooperative and things like that. And you definitely should be with police, but there's definitely some things you shouldn't do. And I want to highlight those first. The number one thing is you should never, ever voluntarily surrender information to a police officer. You have to provide them with your photo identification and things like that. But a lot of people get their Miranda rights confused, and they end up escalating the situation where now they're definitely going to go to jail, all because they think that the cop is violating their rights because they weren't read their Miranda rights, which a lot of times the cops don't need to. And there's very specific situations where a person does need to be read their rights. And that is when you're in a custodial interrogation, is how it's termed. And you might say, George, what does that mean? Custodial interrogation. Normally, it means that you're in custody and you're being interrogated. Seems simple enough. That's what the two words are. I defined the phrase with the phrase itself, which the law tends to do sometimes. But simple questions like, do you know why I pulled you over? And where are you going? What street do you live on? Things like that are not questions that require that somebody be Mirandized. And you see a lot of people get into situations that they wouldn't have gotten if they just answered the question. Now, for the average person, how do you know if you're in a custodial interrogation? Usually, that'll be explicitly clear from the officer. They'll, put you in handcuffs and they'll start asking you questions about, who is this person, and give me your phone, and all of these other things that just kind of seem like, wow, this really is not a good situation. So what can you do to help yourself if you come see somebody like me and say, George, I got pulled over. The cop said that I stole something from, Target or Walmart or, wherever. you shop. And I didn't. However, the cops don't, automatically say, oh, okay, I believe you, you can go on your way. They're going to ask you a series of questions, and the way you respond to that will turn into whether you get to go home that night or you get to spend the night in jail. Most of the time when you're not cooperating, the cops will then say that you're, obstructing, you're not complying, or disobeying an order from a police officer, and that gives them grounds right there to arrest you on something completely different than what they initially had stopped you for. So there's a lot of moving parts that happen, and most of the things that happen in a stop with a police officer, it happens so fast that the average person doesn't know what's going on or what to do or what to say, and they end up hurting themselves because they either escalate a situation or they give the officer all kinds of information, and that's enough evidence to convict. That's essentially a confession. Now, how I operate when a client comes in and it turns out there's a confession. I'll give an example of a client that I had who was pulled over. He had a bench warrant out for past due child support payments, and the cops pulled him over and they arrested him, and while they were searching him, they found drug paraphernalia, and the person admitted that it was drug paraphernalia and said, I've been trying to get clean, but I just couldn't do it, and I need help. And the prosecutor in that case tried to throw the book at this person, and this was a person who was trying to get better, and us as a society need to be looking out for those people and trying to do something to help them recover and to get them back into being productive members of society. Now, there are people who are just terrible people, murderers, rapists, things like that, and those aren't the people I'm talking about. I'm talking about the people who are genuinely just trying to get by in life, and they end up getting caught up in some drama or whatever it may be. Wrong place, wrong time, fell on tough times. Those are situations where people need to be helped. One wrong move in the criminal justice system, and you can have a black mark on your record for the rest of your life until you can get it expunged, and then you have to go through that whole process, and that's not even a sure thing, and you could be disqualified from jobs and all kinds of stuff. And I've had clients who tried to get some sort of professional licensing, and they had something in their past 10-12 years ago, and the licensing board was giving them a tough time, and they said, George, I did it. I wanted to take responsibility, but I didn't, I pled guilty, and I didn't know that this was something that could happen because of that. And, whether the system should be responsible for things like that is a totally different debate. But as people and, just trying to get by in life, I think it's important that everybody understands the consequences of being stopped by the police. You see things recently with the advances of technology where it turns out that somebody locked up in prison for 35 years didn't commit a crime that they said that the jury and everybody said that person committed, and it turns out that after DNA testing wasn't true. And we have to be better about it in knowing the steps, and it shouldn't be an excuse that well, I didn't know. There's thousands of lawyers in the state of Michigan and across the country that offer free consultations, and generally want to make sure that people are, understanding of the seriousness of what their actions have contributed to. Now, my biggest piece of advice, number one, thing I always tell everybody is don't do the police officer's job for them. Don't voluntarily consent to searches and things like that, because what you're doing is you're essentially taking an argument that a lawyer can make in court away from that lawyer. You're kind of handicapping that lawyer, and you might say, well, it doesn't matter. I can't afford a lawyer. The public defenders are terrible, and I'm just going to plead guilty because I can't, deal with going to court every 2 weeks and dealing with the prosecutor, and I can't take the time off work or whatever it may be. There is absolutely no excuse to be apathetic towards the criminal justice system and the court system in general. When something happens to you, a loved one, a friend, a family member, a coworker, that person needs good advice. They need the right advice, and they need to consult with somebody who actually knows. The problem is that by the time this person gets to a lawyer, they've already really sealed their fate because of what happened in that initial police encounter. You might say, George, it's just too risky. I mean, I feel like the cops are, just dirty, and they're going to do anything that can make me look like I'm the bad person. And, it's a losing battle no matter what. I don't want to fight it. So, I'll just give up and I'll give them what they want. And that is not the right thing to do. It is absolutely crucial that people in any type of public service are held to a higher, if not the highest standard, and police officers fall into that category. I have police officer friends. They're good people. The majority of them are, like anybody. Most people are good people, and the stories you see on TV and the internet is a microcosm of, the bad apple in, a group of 1,500 good people. Now, what happens if you do get that bad apple on a traffic stop? You just need to be polite. You need to say, no, officer, I do not consent to a search. They're going to search your car anyway, or they're going to search your person anyway. Let them. Don't fight it, because you're going to end up getting charged with a whole different count, and that's going to be that. And there isn't much you can do about that individually if you represent yourself, if you get a public defender, or if you hire a lawyer. There are certain things that, we can't do. We're not magicians. And there's also situations where things happen to people. There was a case recently in Michigan where a man was driving, and he was driving to work in the morning, and he had a diabetic seizure. And he was being reported as a drunk driver on the road. He was driving his truck, and he was swerving in between the lines, and the cops thought that they had an extremely drunk man that was a danger to other motorists on the road and property and all this other stuff that is important to other people, and it's the police's job to protect. Well, the driver finally stopped, but he was in essentially the early onset of going into a diabetic coma, and the police treated him like he was a drunk driver. They berated him with questions. They tased him. They threw him on the ground. It was only until they found, his insulin pump that they realized that this person had a serious health condition, and whether it was right of those police to treat him that way. They respond to the threat that they think is there at the moment. And I've heard stories as simple as I was trying to find a place not on the road to pull over, and the cop, by the time I pulled into a parking lot a half mile down the road, the cops got out of the car, pointed the gun, thought I was gonna run. And here that person thought that they were doing the right thing. Every time you encounter a police officer, they're treating every traffic stop like it could be a dangerous situation. The moment they let their guard down, they feel like they could lose their life. And there are situations where that is true. So you have to see it from their point of view too. Now, I'm not going to, break down every, single step of, how a traffic stop is supposed to happen, what your rights are, what, the police can do. Instead, I mean, generally, the police are going to do whatever they want. And it's the job of the judge and the jury to determine if what the police did was lawful. All a person does on the side of the road arguing with the cop is add, 2 or 3 more charges onto their prosecution list. So the best advice, and please, take it to heart, and it helps not only you, but it will also help a lawyer that represents you to just be kind and polite and try and see that the officer across from you is probably on edge, a little concerned, much like you probably are because of all the things that you are seeing in the news recently. It's a very tense time, and that's why a lot of departments have instituted body cameras, and they're doing more training. And will it go away ever? Will it become a perfect situation? I don't know the answer to that, but in general, just be polite. Yes, sir. No, sir, ma'am. Depending on who the officer is, and never consent to a search, and never voluntarily confess any information. It's your right to remain silent, and there's nothing, absolutely nothing, wrong with asserting what is your right under the law. There's a reason that is the first right read when a police officer does read you your Miranda rights, because it's the most important. You should be silent, but you should cooperate, because if you don't, there's going to be consequences and different charges that just can't be fought when you go in front of the judge. You either did it or you didn't. The whole scope of the illegal searches and seizures and the Fourth Amendment is in almost 8 weeks of an entire class in law school, so it's not worth it to really dive into every situation. But just know that the law does give a lot of deference to the police to do their job. The 2 things that an individual can do is not consent and not speak. If you do those 2 things, you're probably going to end up in a better situation when everything is said and done than the majority of the people that go through the system. So please, please, please respect the police officers out there. They're trying to do their job. They're trying to keep you safe. But again, don't do their job for them. That's the biggest takeaway that I want people to take from here. Now, the other thing that turns into something that most people either know somebody or go through it themselves, and it's unfortunate, but it's when families break apart. And the same advice can kind of apply to people that go through divorces and child custody battles and things like that. And you never really want to put yourself or your children or anybody through it, but there are times where it has to be done, and it's important to know that it doesn't have to be a angry and dirty process as a lot of people think. If everybody just agreed to be good natured and adhere to the things that are taught in the Bible and really every religious teaching and text is they call it the golden rule. Do unto others as you would want unto you. It's very important, and a lot of people lose sight and want to turn it into a they want revenge, and that's not okay. And it only makes things worse. It looks bad in front of the judge. You could talk to almost any family law judge around the country, and they know when one party is trying to take advantage of the other party. They're acutely aware of that. They see it all the time. And the couples and the families that act like adults and actually talk about their situations and say, I just don't think this is working anymore. Let's try and do what's best for our kids and each other and, be amicable. Now, you would think a situation like that would make sense. It's a civil matter. We're not going to have any problems. But what ends up happening? Nine times out of 10, somebody files for some sort of personal protection order against the other spouse, and they want to exclude them from the home. And what happens? The police get involved. And in domestic situations, tempers are already at an all-time high, and then the police show up and they turn into an even higher degree of frustration and anger and hatred and all of these emotions that as people we will naturally have. But it's important to remember what we're taught in the Bible, by our parents, by the church, by example of the people we look up to, that you can't let those types of emotions overwhelm you and control how you act in these situations, because you're only going to be put in a worse situation. Unfortunately, if a spouse files for a personal protection order against the other spouse and it's granted, and then that spouse violates it, even with the best of intentions, it's going to be looked upon negatively by the courts. And is that fair? I don't think so, but I'm not the judge making the decisions. So the two biggest situations in life where people encounter the police are already generally pretty hostile, and it's important that you take a breath and you remember that this is a person too, and I'm going to be calm and I'm going to be collected, and I understand that this person is trying to do what they think is best for them, whether it's a police officer doing their job or a spouse that thinks that their children should be with them. There's the reason the court system exists is to try and even these disputes out. You don't have one person making the decision of who goes to jail or who gets the marital home or who sees the children on what days. It's supposed to be a system where it's fair, it's impartial, the law is applied, and if you don't like it, you have the right to appeal that decision and let a new group of people decide if the law was actually followed. So you don't get to see situations where there's a amicable divorce where the husband and wife say, I just don't, I love you, but I'm not in love with you anymore, and I think it's best that we go our separate ways. Let's put everything down the middle and let's move on. I I like you as a person, and I wish you the best. You don't hear about those situations. You only hear about the nasty things that come on television. And those type of things skew the perception that people have on the legal system. And so they already are in a position where they think that they're, for a lack of better term, gonna be screwed if this happens to them. And there are people out there that can help you, that understand things. And contrary to popular belief, a lot of lawyers are willing to help people, especially in the criminal and family law areas. They're generally good-natured people that want to see their clients get their problems resolved in the way that's best for them. So I run across people every day that are always asking me questions. George, what this happened to a friend, or my friend is going through this. Why did the judge do that? And all of these things. And all I can say is, I don't know. I hope, do they have a lawyer? And a lot of times they say no, they can't afford one, or they had one, but he wasn't very good and he took all their money. So now they don't have money for another one. And that's unfortunate. That isn't how the system is supposed to work. And I deeply feel terrible for people that get taken advantage of that way. That's why it's important to me. It's my personal mission to just give everybody access to as much information as possible and let them make the choice. It's not a matter of money. It's a matter of principle. It's the fact that I believe in this system, and when you have clients that have had bad experiences in it, you say to yourself, we have to do something about this. It's not okay that people feel like they're not ever going to get treated fairly in a system that's supposed to be impartial. Justice is blind. That's, in any case, there's going to be times where it doesn't feel like things are going your way, but you have to have trust. You have to have faith. You have to, rely on somebody that you put that trust and that faith in as well, and hope that they're doing what needs to be done that's in your best interest. And as a lawyer, we have an ethical duty to do that for you. So with that just general topic of two things that people, in general tend to have happen to them, or know somebody who has had it happen to them, or watched a friend go through it. It's usually traffic tickets, or, a police encounter, or some type of divorce or child custody thing. And I think it's important that we all remember that it's not, it's not our place to pass judgment on these people and have these selfish feelings. It's our job as Christians to be understanding and be kind and courteous and respectful, but know that you do have certain rights that is inherent in your presence in the United States of America. So I know it's a very general overview of things. It's not a lot of legal information. I think I would probably put everybody to sleep if they, tuned in and wanted to listen to, an hour-long lecture about a Terry stop, which is one of the first things you learn about in law school. It's just, it's not important to you. It's something you won't remember on a daily basis if you ever get into that encounter with a police officer for any reason. But just remember that the values that are taught to us are the things that will keep you in the best position possible, both mentally and legally. So if anybody has any, general questions and things like that, I'm going to put out the call-in number right now. It is area code 248-796-8241. Now, I can't answer any questions specifically about your present legal situation. That isn't something that I'm ethically allowed to do. We're not in an attorney-client relationship. I'm trying to educate people every time I see them, but unfortunately I can't give them specific advice. So if you have any type of questions or comments about, generally what, happens after you get arrested, or why did police do that, or why are courts, so biased in certain family situations. I mean, those are discussions that are had all the time, and those are things we can talk about. Moving on, though, now I can't say that I am as well versed in the teachings of the Bible as Reverend Harvey is, and I miss her presence here to kind of have her remind everybody of these specific instances where the Bible teaches us, to be, calm and understanding of others, and not to judge them, and that is something that she's an expert at, and I'm an expert at the law. So my mission in life, my purpose, the reason I became a lawyer is to help people, is to navigate them through a system that I believe works and is the best system in the world for solving these disputes. And in my short time, as you can see, I may be losing my hair, but it's not gray yet. I've just come across these common themes of people that have been either misinformed, or they've been taken advantage of by somebody else. And what can I do? And sometimes that answer is, well, you might have to cut your losses and forgive and move on. However, the majority of people I interact with on a daily basis who call me, who say they have trouble, have already done the Google search, right? The first thing that everybody does, it seems nowadays, when they have a question is they go to the internet and they type in their search bar, why did this happen? Or give me more information about this. And up pops hundreds of millions of websites, some of them great, a lot of them terrible. And then they'll read all of this stuff, and then they'll come see me or another lawyer, and then they'll tell me that I'm not right, and that they read these things on the internet. And as a lawyer, I really appreciate people who take it upon themselves to really try and understand what's going on. But it's important that you don't get misinformation. And that is the biggest, probably overarching symbol and theme of what I see day in and day out, is just misinformation. Whether it's misinformation because they are reading an article about a situation in Utah, and they live in Indiana, and the laws are completely different out there. So they think that the Utah law applies, but it just doesn't. It doesn't apply. Like my example earlier, the DUI checkpoints. If that happened to you in Michigan, if some crazy sheriff out there wanted to set up a DUI road stop checkpoint, and you blew a .02 and they wrote you a ticket, wouldn't be enforceable. The Michigan Supreme Court has ruled on that. Now, if that happens in another state, that might be okay, and you might be going to jail. And that's not, it's just the way that our system works in this country. Now, the effect of misinformation on people, it runs deep, and it's something that is prevalent in a lot of situations where you deal with these two topics of criminal law and family law. A lot of people don't want to trust their lawyer. They don't want to tell them everything. So they hide certain things about their case or the situation or whatever. I'm your biggest ally. I'm the person that's putting on the gloves and getting in the ring and fighting for you. And if I don't have all that information, I can't do a good enough job for you. I might land a couple punches, but then I get blindsided by that right hook and knocked out because you didn't think that I should know that, because you didn't want to tell me something that actually happened, and you led me to believe that something else actually happened. So it's not only misinformation on the internet, it's misinformation between the attorney and their client. If you have an attorney, please be completely upfront and tell them everything that happened and answer their questions truthfully. They are trying to help you. They're not going to, go tell the judge, hey, my client said all of this stuff. Those are things that attorneys get disbarred over. No longer allowed to practice law in that jurisdiction. And frankly, pretty much any other jurisdiction they tried to get admitted to. That is the equivalent of a, Pro Bowl NFL running back losing a leg. You just can't do your job anymore. Your career, everything you worked so hard for, gone. So trust your lawyer. He has just as much at stake. He has a reputation, or she. He has ethical obligations. If your lawyer doesn't, do certain things, they can get punished. So please, in every situation, whether it's a divorce, a bankruptcy, felony accusation by the government, a business dispute, anything, you can't be the one providing misinformation to your lawyer, because that person trusts you and you should trust them. Without that mutual relationship, things just don't work. And you see that everywhere in life. When you have two people who are in something together and they don't trust each other, it doesn't really ever work out for those people. It's an important factor, and every detail is important in your communications, with your lawyer, and you should obviously be also asking your lawyer questions too, and making sure that you're not misinformed and that you clearly understand things. Because I'll tell you something, out of the clients I've had who we have really clicked, we have a good open relationship. We trust each other. I know that they're not keeping anything from me, and they know that the second I hear something or I need something from them, I'm giving them a call. I'm not waiting. We generally succeed in those cases. And if we don't, then it's not as big of a disappointment, because I've usually told them, after they've told me the truth, the whole truth and nothing but the truth, to use some courtroom lingo, that, looking at all the facts, maybe the law's not on their side, and sometimes it's not. And it's unfortunate that it happens that way. And, there's still things that an attorney can do for you, even after they say, I don't think that, you have a chance, but this might be the type of issue that, can overturn that law that says you don't have a chance on an appeal. So I can't do my job if we don't have that type of relationship. And it's really about trust. It's really about faith. It's about going through something together, feeling like you have a partner that is going through the same trials and tribulations that you are. They're carrying your burden with you. They're sharing it. Sometimes they bear it themselves, and it's great when you have that type of client to really bond and connect. And when they send you flowers, or you get a Christmas card from your lawyer, every year after they've represented you, because they care. And contrary to all the jokes, the stereotypes, we do care. Generally, the good lawyers care, and we want to do right by our clients. So when you sit down and say, George, the police pulled me over, I told them everything. They asked me if they could search the car. I told them yes. They found all this stuff. I was just in a rough patch. I, needed to make some extra money, and my friend told me this. And, generally, I'll say that makes it really hard. I'll still go and fight for you. And, I'll try to make sure that, you're treated fairly. Some people say, yes, I completely understand. I just want somebody to help me with through the system. I don't want to go at it alone. And other people have this conception, again, that comes from misinformation, that, whether it's movies or TV shows or books or whatever, that we're some sort of wizard that will conjure up some sort of magical defense that lets you get out of something. So the amount of information that's available today is unlike anything we have ever seen in the history of our world. The easy access to information, the advertising for websites, type in your question here and a lawyer will answer it for you, or all of these things. It's great that people have that ability and that tool to get help that they never had before. However, with that comes a special type of responsibility to make sure that there isn't a false flag of sorts that says, yeah, this is totally how you should be handling the situation. And you go in and you think, okay, I read this on the internet, I am a pro, or I stayed at a Holiday Inn Express, so I must be a lawyer now, for those of you that remember those commercials. So I'm going to represent myself. I'm going to go in there. I got that smoking gun, and there you go. It's, going to work out for me because the internet told me so. It's not that easy. If it was that easy, I wouldn't have a job. I wouldn't have spent 3 years of my life learning about laws and cases and the history of our judicial system, and spent tens of thousands of dollars on that to have the internet be able to do that job for me and for you. Information is the most powerful tool we have, and you have to use it properly. But you also need a partner. You need somebody that understands the procedural things that you only know by doing it. You only learn that by being there, being on the front line. So don't let somebody on an internet comment board that says that they're an attorney, they might be verified. They might say, yeah, I've done this 1,000,000 times, and every time the case has been the exact same. Well, you know what? You don't want to be that million and one person that just because you weren't giving full disclosure of everything, you weren't answering questions properly because you didn't want to look bad, you're going to be that one example. And that's not okay. Nobody should feel that they didn't get a fair shake, whether it's their own fault or not. There's a lot of things that happen in our day-to-day lives that are good, bad, beautiful, but you can't let yourself be intimidated. You can't let yourself be too overconfident, and you can't let yourself go into a situation that you've never been in before without somebody there that understands it, that can fight for you, that's going to be in your corner. There's a lot of organizations out there now that will at least give you the tools to go in and do the job yourself. And it's great that with the internet and software and technology that you can input information into a box and generate your own complaint for divorce and all this stuff and file it yourself and not have to pay a divorce lawyer and everything. But please, sit down with one. Make sure that you're on the right path. Most attorneys will be glad to help people because that's what we're here to do. We're here to help. We're here to fight for our clients. We're here to win and do the best that we can, because all we have in our lives as lawyers is our reputation. So we care about you. We care about your results. But please, don't let misinformation be the proverbial straw that breaks the camel's back. That one little thing that you didn't think was important, that your attorney asked you about, or you were embarrassed to tell, could be that one factor that makes or breaks your case. I appreciate everybody tuning in, listening. I hope I gave you enough information. If you need me for anything, if you're a Michigan resident, my number is 248-845-8594. If day or night, anytime. I hope I did right by Miss Harvey. I hope she's having a good time in Nashville if she's listening. I'm sure you'll all love her back instead of listening to me in the future. But don't worry, I'll be back because my job is to make sure that everybody understands the intricacies of a system that could really benefit them or do them harm if they're not prepared. So again, thank you for listening. I hope everybody has a great night wherever they are, and thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening to the Preached Word broadcast. Fellowship with us at the Rose of Sharon Christian Assembly, located at 19337 Conant, Detroit, Michigan, between East 7 Mile Road and East Outer Drive. Fellowship with us and our Sunday worship service at 11 a.m. Contact us at 313-570-8305 or email any special prayer request to revcdharvey@yahoo.com. Visit our webpage at worshipcenterradio.net. Thanks again for listening. Tune in again next Thursday at 8 p.m. and I'll see you in the next worship service at 11 a.m. at the Rose of Sharon Christian Assembly. God bless you.